Welcome everyone to the first off-season in team history for the Carolina Atlantic University Drakes. As the first off-season, finally some excitement on this team after the worst season possible, 0-12. We're gonna hopefully get an entirely new look team with some new recruits, maybe some transfers. They'll have to sit out for a year, but we are really looking to entirely build this team from scratch, and it starts right now with being fired. Of course, we went 0-12, and we didn't really have a lot of expectations, but apparently we didn't meet them, but that's okay. We're just going to recreate our coach, and now we can look to some of the other coaching openings around the country. Wisconsin is the top-rated job, and they're going to hire Todd Orlando from Texas to be their new coach. Then moving on to Oregon, Jim Chaney was fired. They're going to get the head coach of Louisiana Tech. And then we can move on to Iowa. They're also looking for a new head coach. They're going to hire the head coach from Arkansas State, TCU. They're going to go with the head coach from Air Force. So they're going to be an option team. Let's take a look at us. We have two brand new coordinators. Our entire staff was fired, including ourselves, but we basically just rehired ourselves. We have McIntyre and Perkins as our new offensive and defensive coordinators. Perkins comes over from NIU after being fired, and then McIntyre comes over from Georgia Tech. So our coaches at least have some experience at the other levels. We'll have to see what their level is in the game. Their only player leaving is Caleb Robinson. This guy was a leftover from the original roster. I converted everyone to punter and cut everyone except for him, so he didn't even play this year. So really, we didn't lose anyone. But let's look at some of the teams we faced this year. Joe White from our first game of the season against Ball White is projected to be a 5th round left guard, and he will enter into our Madden 25 series. Oklahoma State also has a 5th round projected offensive lineman, Kenyon Harvey, at center. Nevada has one player going pro, a 2nd round cornerback, Rob Johnson. Also, the projections aren't really aligned with what's going to happen in the Madden 25 series because the game it doesn't really match up between the two games. But Arizona has 3 players go pro. They're free safety, tight end, and left tackle, all projected to go on day number 3. And Ryan Jones had 7 touchdowns to them to wrap up their season. And Madsen, not the greatest stat line, but still going pro. Michigan State had a bunch of players, few players projected to go into the 1st round, including Paris Johnson. Not the greatest year for him, but maybe he was injured. They also have a kicker going pro with a 90% in his final year. Their quarterback, Joe Kent, is also going pro with a pretty nice final season. 2 full seasons of work for him. Michael Beck is going pro. He didn't really have any stats. The game just kind of does this entirely based on overall, not really production, but J.J. Young is also going to be declaring for them. Notre Dame has a bunch of players going pro for them, including Quincy Macklin, their quarterback, who got hurt in the middle of the year. I don't even think he was in our game, but he's declaring as a junior, which is kind of rare in this game. But Mark Miles is also declaring. Jonathan Simmons, Derek Harris. Notre Dame just has so many players entering into the NFL, and you got to imagine that a lot of these high overall players that say graduation, like their guard here, Tim Moody, I think, they're also probably going to end up in the series. They also have a few other juniors declaring. Jason Smith at wide receiver and Kimbrough at running back. We saw him. He will be entering the draft early. Texas A&M also has a handful of players, with a few going early as well. They have a middle linebacker who's a junior, a right tackle, and also an outside linebacker going pro, giving up their last season of eligibility. And we will see if these players make an impact at the next level. Also, for Georgia Southern, John Hartman, one of the top quarterbacks in the country, 46 touchdowns for him. Their running back also declares Will Patton. I think he got injured early in the year, but he's going pro. Chris Gray is also going pro, projected to go in the 1st round. And then also their stud tight end, 1,000 yards and 14 touchdowns for him in his senior year. makes him NFL draft eligible. Reynaldo Houston, one of the best running backs in the country. We faced him the last week of the season. He's projected to go in the first round. Caleb Green, 11 touchdowns and 1,000 yards for him, will propel his draft stock. They have their running back Randall Palmer going early. We didn't see a bunch of him in our game, but mostly because Houston was getting like all the playing time. But they also have a sophomore declaring. Robert Simmons, you don't see that much in this game, a sophomore declaring for the NFL, but he's projected to go in day 3, as well as Stevenson. Now let's look around some of the other teams in the league, and this is our first quarterback class. Now don't pay attention to the order of this, because this order, actually Anderson is projected to be one of the top quarterbacks, and it doesn't even list him as going to the draft in this. This game's kind of weird, but these are just mostly the players that will be in the first pool of draft eligible quarterbacks. So a few players here. Javon Cook is the only one declaring early. He has 2 full years as a starter. And actually no, there's Reggie Wilson from UCLA, projected to go in the 7th round. Now let's look at the running backs. Houston leads up at top. And then they also have their top receiver from Florida State being part of the first wide receiver class. And a bunch of players, of course, at the wide receiver position. Tight end, Florida has the top tight end this year. And I just wanted to show you some of the skill positions, but these are now from the all positions, some of the top players in the entire country. 399 overall players will be entering this year's draft. Now let's move on to transfer requests. We actually get one. Nate Adams from East Carolina wants to join our team. 70 overall would make him immediately the top player on this roster, but he does, of course, have to sit out the first year, and he will definitely, probably, more than likely, will be a starter in his sophomore year. Now let's jump into recruiting. Will Martin, we have him pretty much in the bag, 4,000 points ahead. Not going to spend a ton of points on him. Luke Macklin, a kicker. We do need one, as we have our Matt Long doing both kicking and punting. So we start off with Macklin. Will Martin, I'm probably just going to throw a little bit of points onto later. We do have Stephen Jude, so that locks up one quarterback spot, but I did want to get a second quarterback this year, just to have some competition, since I don't imagine these guys are going to be able to do it all by themselves. Isaac Fox is a 71 overall with B throw power. That would be a nice compliment to Stephen Jude, which I believe has B speed. So we're trying to get him, but it is kind of a battle with Oklahoma State. Not a huge lead. Probably should have done more. Should have been more aggressive during the season. But with Will Martin, we're just going to chuck probably about 1,000 on him, just to kind of secure him. Aaron Jones, we might come back to later. We do have Alex Butler. We do need more receivers, though. And looking at some of these guys, I removed Stanford. He's way too far out of the question. And Carl Fontenot kind of catches my eye here. He's projected to be like a 68 overall, and he has pretty good speed, pretty good catching. He's a 4-star receiver, so that's kind of what's going to make me let's put some points on him here in a second. Nick Rhodes just doesn't have the catching, and he is coming in as, I believe, a sophomore, so it's going to take a while before he's going to be really good for us. He does have good speed, but it would be difficult for him to make an impact. We do have a lot of players declared right now, which is pretty good. As far as linebacker goes, we run a 4-2-5, so we only need 2. And I'm just going to go with AJ Sherman. He's from Hawaii, and he's our highest in terms of the lead that we have here. So just trying to get 1 or 2 linebackers. Quarterbacks, we should have probably went after this harder. We do need 3 or 4, and we don't have any currently, so I'm going to be dumping probably a lot of points on Macklin and Carey here. I'm just trying to build up this secondary. And Tom Richard also part of the secondary, so we're going after him. you have a bit of a lead on him, and then not really interested in the athletes after that first run. So now I'm just kind of trimming off some of the players we're probably not going to be getting. Then I top off Will Martin to 1,000, and then we have about 4,000 points left to kind of decide what players we want to get here. And I decided on Carl Fontenot. We need receivers for Steven Jude to throw the ball to. That will make a huge impact for us, but I do end up kind of splitting the points between these 4 guys, and the way that I think about it is that these would be 4 day 1 starters, and a lot of other players are going to be kind of hard to go after. Isaac Fox, we're really just hoping that Oklahoma State doesn't put anything on him, and we'll end up with him. But we can't really justify going after 2 quarterbacks in our first year. If we have to, we'll just stick with Steven Jude for year number 1. But we do up it a little bit, so it's not like, you know, a victory by like 20 points. And again, if Oklahoma State puts any amount of points in him, we're going to lose him. So now with 1,500 points remaining, I definitely want Sherman. He would be a great anchor over the middle at linebacker. And then Luke Macklin at kicker. We're 1,000 points ahead, so we really don't need that many points. But Martin, I want a lot. He's a great all-around player. He can't really catch the ball, but he has great skills at running back. And then I have 500 points left, and I'm kind of deciding here what is the last player we want to try to lock down. And I end up putting the last 500 on Brian Brown, an athlete, and he has B throw power, B throw accuracy. He might actually be a really good player for us, and he has maybe some ability to play in the secondary. So if we could get him, he could be maybe a 2-way player for us. But we have the 115 class, and after recruiting, we have the number 51 class, a huge jump and a great first start to this series. We're 25 overall, you can see. So a lot of players want to come and play for us. They want the playing time. We do end up with Fontenot, Butler, Jones, Richard, Summers, Wojcicki, Carey, Griffin, Macklin, Martin, Sherman, Porter, Keller, a few walk-ons. We actually got a lot of walk-ons to this team. And Michigan had one of the best classes in the country. They had 3 5-stars. Notre Dame had 11 4- and 5-star players. But let's jump into our class. We don't really care about their class. Let's jump into ours. So we have the players that we already had committed during the season. Bell, Kenny, Clark, Jude, Summers, Wojcicki, and Butler. But these guys, Kenny and Bell, are going to lock down the outside at tackle. Clark is going to start immediately at center. Steven Jude is going to be our quarterback unless we got another one. Summers, Wojcicki. We lose out on Jason Wilson. We do get Macklin, so kicker is secured. Martin Lewis, I don't think we had a chance at him. Boston College, probably put a lot of points into him. We do end up with Tom Richard. We beat Georgia Tech by 2,300. He will definitely be a day 1 starter at safety. Will Martin, that's a big pickup for us at 67 overall at halfback. And we won by 6,000 points, so we probably didn't have to put anything into him. But we just really wanted to lock down pretty much an all-purpose back. We lose out on Rhodes, Davis, Douglas, the other Douglas, Marcus Spencer, Walter, Holmes. We really didn't go after any of these guys. Stephen Roth, by 500 points, commits to UTEP. We do end up with Matt Carey. So this is our first cornerback signing. He will 100% play. We need a lot of cornerbacks. Johnny McCoy goes to Texas Tech. We didn't go after him. We didn't go after Johnston or Brown or Gibson. But Derek Macklin also commits, 62 overall cornerback, so he will join Carey in the secondary. And we do end up with AJ Sherman, and then Fontenot, and then Jones surprisingly commits. We didn't put in any points to him at the final stage, but he still commits. So AJ Sherman will probably lead our team in tackles in year number 1, and then Fontenot will be one of our best receivers, the number 57 receiver in the country, and at 4 stars. It's kind of surprising. But yeah, the surprise signing of this offseason was Aaron Jones. We didn't put in anything into him, and we will have 2 running backs to start out. I was really planning on only having 1, but this surprise signing means we're going to have at least 2 options and a bunch of players who don't commit. Isaac Fox does not commit anywhere. We really wanted him, and he just doesn't choose a school. So now on to position changes. Justin Kenny will be playing on the right, Derek Bell on the left. Phil Pearson, he is a walk-on linebacker. He will be starting at middle linebacker. We didn't even go after him, but to still get a player like that is pretty cool. Keller, another walk-on linebacker. He will be like our 3rd backup linebacker. Now looking at our training results, Nate Adams, our transfer, is a top player on our team. And then Griffin is the first non-punter. And these players are all just the players from year number 1, so pretty good improvement across the board, but a lot of these players are now going to be relegated to a backup role. So now we're at cut players. We have enough roster spaces, but I just want to cut Jesse Gordon. He was redshirted, which means he didn't play at all, because I didn't redshirt any players in year number 1. So if they get redshirted, that means they didn't even play a snap the entire season. So, and he was the only player that applied to. But let's look at our depth chart for year number 1. Steven Jude will start at quarterback, 65 overall scrambling quarterback. Aaron Jones will get the start at running back, followed by Will Martin. We'll have to see which one of those 2 ends up better by the end of the year. Glover will start at fullback. Our wide receiver room will look like Butler, Fontenot, Alex Griffin, and then Jamal Griffin is up there in terms of overall. Eric Bishop and Matt Frank, this doesn't change from last year. They'll still be our tight ends for this season. Derek Bell starts at left tackle. Butler starts at left guard. Clark starts at center. And then right guard will probably be someone else. Probably not Jordan Garcia, but then Justin Kenny will be our right tackle. Rich Walski will start at left end. And then Porter, a walk-on defensive end, will be our right end. Blake Summers and Stevenson will lock down the middle of the defensive line. We're 4-2-5, so Phil Pearson will be our starting linebacker, and then AJ Sherman starting at right linebacker. Macklin, Carey, and then the 3rd corner will probably be one of those 3 guys. Tom Richard will start at free safety, and then Derek Gross returns to be our starting strong safety. Macklin at kicker, and then finally Matt Long at punter. This is going to wrap up the off season. Tune in next episode for the first episode of season number 2, where we will have a tough first matchup against Ohio State. I hope you guys are enjoying this series. I will catch you guys later. Goodbye.